Hello everyone and welcome to our series, The Tithe as a Foreshadowing of the Messiah. And today we'll look at the fact that the tithe was given as an inheritance. So we know from the previous videos that the tithe is given to the Levite in order to do a very specific work. That very specific work is to make sacrifices unto the forgiveness of sin. But not only that, we read in the anchor verse. This is the verse that it takes to understand the tithe. See, I, God speaking, have given the Levites all the tithes in Israel for an inheritance. This is not poetry. This is not flowery language. This is not just filler words. The inheritance is the reason why the Levites received the tithe. So let's look at that in detail. We see from Genesis 15, God is speaking to Abram and he's making a promise. To your descendants I give this land from the river of Egypt to the great river, the Euphrates River. So that promise is reiterated in Genesis 26. God is speaking to Isaac, that is Abram's son. I will give all these lands to you and to your descendants, and I will fulfill the solemn promise I made to your father Abraham. I will give them all these lands in verse 4. 2 chapters later, Genesis 28, God is speaking to Jacob. Now, Jacob is Abram's grandson, and God says, I will give you and your descendants the ground you are lying on. So God has made a promise. He says, you are going to get this land. You and your descendants will get this land. But let's look at Numbers chapter 18, verse 20. Very interesting. It says here, you will have no inheritance in their land. Wait a second. Now, the Levites, they are the sons of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And God has promised exactly these sons to get some land between the river Euphrates and the Mediterranean Sea. But now God is reneging, quite literally reneging on his promise. He says, Abraham, your sons are going to get this land. And he says, oh, here, by the way, here's some Abrahamic sons, but you're not getting the land. Okay, let's look at the verse in its entirety, the concept in its entirety, verses 20 and 21a. You will have no inheritance in their land, nor will you have any portion of property among them. I am your portion and your inheritance among the Levites. See, I have given the Levites all the tithes in Israel for an inheritance. So the inheritance is the land, but God is saying, you're not getting the land. Instead of the land, you're getting the tithe. So what this means is that the tithe is based upon the Abrahamic promise, the Abrahamic inheritance, right? God made a promise, and that promise is being modified a little bit, and he's saying, yeah, I promised you this land, but you're not getting the land, you're getting the tithe instead. So what another issue here is that the whole tithe concept, the entire tithe law is wrapped around the nation of Israel. If you are not part of the Abrahamic covenant, well, guess what? You're not part of the tithe. You have absolutely nothing to do with the tithe. The tithe is given. The reason the tithe is given is because of the Abrahamic covenant. If you're not part of that covenant, well, guess what? You're not part of the tithe action. You have nothing to do with it. This is a strictly house of Israel issue. Now, we saw before, I want to put this together of what we saw before. We saw that the tithe pays for the forgiveness of sin. That program of the forgiveness of sin is going to run through the nation of Israel. It's not running through the Egyptians. It's not running through the Babylonians. It's not running through the Americans or the Australians or the Japanese or the Germans, right? This program that God has set up, this how to get your sins forgiven program, is being set up through the house of God. That doesn't mean that it does not affect the other nations, though. Let's take a look at Abram's initial calling. It says here, now the Lord said to Abraham, go out from your country. And at the very end, in verse 4, it says, so that all the families of the earth may receive blessing through you. This is the beginning of the calling that God has for Abraham. Abraham is setting the stage for all. He probably didn't know it at the time, but Abraham is setting the stage for all people to have their sins forgiven. God says that I'm going to bless all people, all nations through the house of Abraham. So even though the tithe law and the program that gets the sins forgiven is administered through the house of Israel, that promise, however, is for the good of all nations. And so it is very important that we understand God's program and how he runs it. God does not do the tithe through the Egyptians and doesn't do it through the Babylonians. It doesn't do it through the French or the Filipinos. Okay, he's doing it through the nation of Israel. And so we want to understand that we have a debt of gratitude to the nation of Israel. And this is one reason why the nation of Israel is so hated. There's an adversary, and I'm going to call him the devil, and the devil understands all these things. And this is why the devil hates Israel. And all the people that the devil can get his hands around, he's going to get them and con them into hating and despising Israel and wanting to wipe Israel off the map. The reason the nations get all riled up about Jerusalem and all riled up about Israel is because of this. Because the devil knows that the salvation of our souls from sin comes through the nation of Israel.